Putin is supposed to be in jail, and he just comes to Alaska like that? Ms Correa is amongst a sea of Alaskans waving Ukrainian flags on a road leading into Anchorage. When I entered through that parking lot and I see a lot of Americans they're supporting, it made me cry, she says. Ms Correa, 40, left Ukraine in 2019 for love, and 6 years later the future of her country could be decided in her adopted hometown. U.S. President Donald Trump and his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin are set to touch down at Joint Base Elmendorf-Richardson, a 30-minute drive away. Ukraine's leader Volodymyr Zelensky is not invited, something Ms Correa says is pretty sad. Among those protesting against their arrival is Christopher Kelliher, a 53-year-old military veteran and Alaskan native. "It's gross. It makes you want to take a shower," he says of the meeting. "Putin doesn't need to be in our state, much less our country. We have an idiot in the White House that will kowtow to this guy." Follow live coverage of the meeting here. Left out of Alaska talks, exhausted Ukrainians fear an unjust peace. People hold signs beside a road, one saying, "War criminal." Hundreds lined a street in Anchorage on Friday to oppose Putin's arrival. This region's history with Moscow gives Friday's summit added significance. The U.S. purchased Alaska from the Russians in 1867 for $7.2 million. Critics called the purchase Seward's folly, referring to William Seward, the U.S. Secretary of State at the time, arguing that the territory amounted to little more than a frozen wasteland. But later discoveries of rare earth minerals and abundant oil and gas put paid to that label. Ornate churches are among the most visible symbols of Alaska's Russian heritage. The St. Tikhon Orthodox Church in Anchorage has been holding 3 days of prayer ahead of leaders' arrival. Priest Nicholas Kragel, an American who recently moved to Alaska after living in Russia for 7 years, says the conflict is particularly painful and close to the hearts of parishioners. "We're hoping that this meeting will lead to something, lead to a culmination of this conflict," Mr. Kragel says. A man wears a black robe and cross with positioned in the interior of a church. Nicholas Kragel has settled in Anchorage with his wife, whom he met in Russia. That feeling is shared by fishermen ankle-deep in creek bed on the outskirts of town, drawn to the area by the allure of some of the world's finest salmon. "I think it's a good idea, the summit. I wish Zelensky would be out here too. Get this thing over with," says Don Cressley, who lives in the Alaskan city of North Pole and is visiting on a fishing trip with his grandson. He wants an end to the war because of the destruction they're doing to all the cities, all the buildings, making everybody more homeless, taking their foods away, their supplies away, their living right away. Donald Trump, he says, is doing an awesome job in ceasefire negotiations. A man holds a fishing rod beside a river. Alaska draws fishermen in search of some of the world's best salmon. While the U.S. president often talks warmly about his relationship with Vladimir Putin, superpower tensions persist and are more keenly felt here. Moscow's military planes are routinely detected flying near the coast of Alaska, and in January, Canadian and American fighter jets were scrambled after multiple Russian jets were spotted in the Arctic, according to the North American Aerospace Defense Command. That breeds a sense of unease for some Alaskans who live closer to Russia than Washington, D.C. Although the Cold War is over between Russia and the U.S., they're constantly patrolling our airways, Anchorage resident Russell Wilson tells me while fishing. "If the president doesn't put the hammer down, we could be the next Ukraine." However, other Alaskans consider a return to Cold War hostilities a far-fetched fantasy. I ask Army veteran Christopher Kelliher if he is concerned about a Russian invasion. "Not really. Everybody in Alaska owns a gun," he replies.